Now, biogas, a new big plant, is set to be built near Evercreech. Earlier on, you heard from Barry O'Leary, who is the local Liberal Democrat councillor.
I think there's lots of local benefits to be had here. Obviously, we'll have new green jobs. There will also be new green energy, which I hope will also get fed into the local grid. And the site itself is in need of a tidy up and is in need of good screening away from, how it looks today, which is a mishmash of industry and concrete and rags and tags of various buildings and sheds. What we need instead is a really professional situation with, as I say, jobs, screening, and good roads.
Well, if you, like me, perhaps maybe need a bit more of a guide as to what biogas is, we'll get to that in a moment. I must say, we did invite the new company on, Macquarie. Is it Macquarie Capital? They weren't available, so they're not here. But here is what some of you in Evercreech Village had to say about the proposals.
I don't see no real problem, not really. I mean, it isn't really going to affect us too much down here, is it? But if it's going to create jobs, I don't see no problem, not really. I suppose it's just they're concerned about the smell, are they? We're used to the smell here of the factory and, well, what was. But that's, of course, closed now. I mean, we're all concerned what's going to happen there, really. You know what I mean? That's what's been the main thing here at the moment. Up there, I don't see no problem being near here, not really, to be fair.
Eco-friendly, I guess, and positive, and probably bring jobs. Generally, I think it's a good thing. I know there's some concerns about smell and lorries and what have you, but, you've got to have these things somewhere, haven't you? So I guess that position's as good as any.
Sounds like a really good idea, to be honest. I mean, it's not something I've heard of before, but if you're reusing a lot of waste and it's helping people to, have fuel in their homes, it sounds like a good idea.
I've heard little bits and pieces, but there's so much rumours around Evercreech now with the biofuel plant, and then there's the new build from the old factory. It's all hearsay. Will it, won't it, that type of thing. So until somebody says for definite, yes, it's going ahead, then I won't really be too worried about it. If it does no harm to the local area and it creates a few jobs, then fair play, then go on and build it.
Some people in the past elsewhere in the country have worried about if there was any smell from it, because obviously it's food waste being turned into energy. Is that something that concerns you at all? Or?
It would if it come anywhere near my house. Yeah. The same as we've got the little shop here. If it was anywhere near the shop, all these concerns has got to be thought about.
What some of you in Evercreech have been telling Ross Pollard. Dr. Emma Hill is an energy and environmental management expert at Coventry University. And hopefully, is there an idiot's guide to all of this? Morning, Emma.
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very interested in this, and also I've been wondering if it is the same as an anaerobic digester, because I know we've had those in Somerset for a good few years.
Yeah, so there is definitely an idiot's guide to bioenergy. So bioenergy and biofuel and biogas, they all tend to get used a little bit sort of interchangeably. And essentially, we're looking at extracting the embodied energy from food waste or from sewage sludge, agricultural wastes. And yet, we put them in an anaerobic digester and we warm it up, and the microbes go to work and they start to digest and break down whatever's in the tank, so food waste or sewage sludge, and they release methane. Because typically organic wastes contain around about 60-65% methane. And we can burn that and use that to do one of two things. So we can either use it to power an electric generator, which we can then import into the national electricity grid to power our homes, or what actually tends to happen more frequently is that it gets used on site. So at a sewage treatment works, you generate the electricity and you'd use it to power the rest of the sewage treatment works. But what we're starting to see, and there's been really big growth in biogas to grid over the last couple of years or so, driven by government incentives. So we can take that methane, we can pressurise it, we give it an odour, and we can pump it directly into the national gas grid, where it can be used to heat our homes, heat our hot water, used on our stoves. And that's really good because in this country, we've got loads of options when it comes to renewable electricity. So wind turbines, solar power, tidal power. But we don't really have a particularly great alternative to renewable heat.
Right.
So most of the UK's heat comes from natural gas. So around about 80% of homes are heated by natural gas. And heating accounts for around about 30%, 37% of the UK's carbon footprint. So we need an alternative to that. So biomethane from food waste, sewage sludge makes a positive contribution to our goal to reduce our carbon emissions to our net zero carbon target.
I mean, it sounds great. It sounds brilliant. Let's pop them up everywhere. How does it compare, though, in terms of the process? What are its green credentials and therefore potential for large-scale production?
So typically bioenergy is carbon neutral because the plants that have been grown, so maize, for example, we could put maize in an anaerobic digester. As that's grown, it's extracted carbon from the atmosphere, and when we process it or when we burn wood, for example, we're simply returning that carbon to the atmosphere. And we have a lot of food waste is the other thing. We have a lot of sewage waste, we have a lot of food waste. I think the plant in Evercreech is going to treat around about, is it?
It will depend what happens on this, but I'm not feeling too good.
It was about 190,000 tonnes, wasn't it? It was a significant amount, but that's still a relatively small proportion of the UK's food waste. So in the UK, we generate from our homes, from hospitality, retail, food manufacturing, around about 9.5 million tonnes of food waste. And if that's put in landfill, you've got an issue around odour, dust, vermin, other forms of contamination, water contamination. And landfill releases, it also releases methane. And that contributes around 5% to the UK's carbon footprint. So anything we can divert from landfill and find other ways of treating it is positive. The food is energy rich, so if we can extract the methane from it, what then happens is we're left with what's referred to as digestate, and we can put that back on agricultural land with a little bit more treatment to make sure that it's completely inert and it's pasteurised and there's nothing nasty in it. And we can put it back on agricultural land as a fertiliser. So not only are we using the energy in the food, we're diverting it from landfill to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions further, we're creating a renewable fuel, and we're creating a fertiliser. And synthetic fertiliser is energy intensive, it uses petrochemicals, so we don't need as much synthetic fertiliser because we've got this more natural fertiliser. So there's a number of benefits to it.
And I mean, one point that people in Evercreech were making, probably one of their main concerns, is if this plant goes ahead, is it going to smell?
It shouldn't. So typically what happens is you'll bring the food waste onto site. Often it'll be packaged. So if you think about, packets of crisps, boxes of packets of crisps that pass their sell-by date, they'll be brought onto site. They'll be put in a bunker for storage. That should contain most of the odour. And then it'll be processed and macerated to remove the packaging, to remove anything contaminated before it's pumped directly into the anaerobic digestion unit. And the digestate that comes out at the end typically has quite a nice smell. That kind of, sort of that sweet sort of silage, good silage, as opposed to just sort of rotting silage. That kind of quite nice countryside smell.
I think I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it shouldn't smell.
Emma, if you were my science teacher at school, I think I probably would have ended up in a different career. It's fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Emma Hill there, an energy and environmental management expert at Coventry University. And this is all being proposed forever.